Bhadram karnebi shrnuyama devaha Bhadram pashyemakshabhiryajatraha Stirairangaihi tushtuvagam sastanubhihi Vyashemadeva-hitam yadayuhu Svastina indro vrdhashravaha Svastina pusha vishwavedaha Svastina starkshyo arishtanemihi Svastino brahaspatir dadhatu Om Shanti 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 Sarvam Kalu Idam Brahma. We have to acknowledge the presence of this. This refers to the objects that we are working with, transacting with, like an ornament, whether it's called a ring or a gold or a necklace. All this, whatever this is none other than its very substance, its very material cause. So now, no matter where, in what ornament you see, what ornament you speak of, you will never not find the material. You will always find the material. So this means you don't have to resolve one ornament to get to the bottom of the gold. Thank you. If you resolve one ornament, then you resolve all ornaments and you always arrive to the same presence that is through and through the entirety of this ornament. So all this, we said another word, is mithya, including this class. You know, you're looking at mithya teacher, mithya person, mithya smile, mithya eyes, mithya sounds. Okay? All this is none other than Brahman, Satyam. And thus, I don't have to run away from the world, because if I go from here to over there, that over there is also within the word this. So this means you can chill out, relax, because you're never away from the very thing that you are. And thus, we then proceeded the analysis by bringing this a little bit more personal with the mind. And we said the inner instrument consists of, number one, your turn. You've done your homework. Manas, which means emotions, doubting. Also, it vacillates. Sankalpa, vikalpa. In other words, I intend to do this. I intend not to do it. Should I do this? Should I not do this? Should I go for him? Should I go for her? Should I go for that? Should I go for this? And thus we say, make up your mind. In other words, stop oscillating your manas and go inside the, number two, buddhi. Because the buddhi is that stable agent in you, the one that relies and says, this is my final decision. So it's the decision maker. In fact, I'm going to say decision made, not decision maker. Because decision maker is also the manas. You know, it's still making a decision. So, as we said, Sanskrit language targets both the manas and the buddhi. I don't think it really targets your manas. I don't know who's got emotional stability doing Sanskrit, but it certainly targets your buddhi. Maybe it does, right? Because you learn to pull your hair like crazy with all those numbers and all those declensions and all those cases, and now you discover, okay, if I can do that, I can be okay with anything, right? Yeah, remember those times when you saw those endings? It's like, how many of those declensions are there?
What are declensions?
Declensions are just like how the verb ends. So namaha, namao, or naraha, narau, nare, or palam, pale, palani. One fruit, two fruits, palani, many fruits. So you gotta know ani and pale. But we just say fruit. You don't have to decline anything, just say fruit. So now that's just for palam. Now you got, for example, agni. If a word ends with e, then you're going to have a different kind of declension. So there's hundreds of those declensions. So it improves certainly your decision making, your patience, and your cognitive cognitive skills. To make sense of things, you have to also draw from the past recollection agent. It saves time to recollect data, otherwise we couldn't function. So we need to quickly just assess and then say, what have I done in the past? Now let me just take that and do it again. 4, which is ahamkara. Its function is twofold. Isolate. That means whatever is happening to these 3 agents, it's as though it's happening to me, the all-pervasive one. It's like if I remove the ahamkara, then when this body is hungry, what happens? I go and feed you. Because I have no separation, right? I think I'm there. So this means the person would die. Okay. So it has to isolate and make it as though this person's experience is happening, or the experience that is generated by this instrument, by this body, is happening here and it's not happening over there. That's what the ahamkara does. Makes it as though roles are happening to me. So thus it seems like me, right, the conscious being, I'm going through the teacher role, through the role of a friend, through the role of whatever, which is okay again. And then we said, what is the relationship that one has with the ahamkara? And that is of separation. That means it makes me, the all-pervasive Akshara Brahman, separate from you. And this is a common unified experience, a common unity in all. So separation in all. Now, because we feel separate, what do? We want to, because you recognize intrinsically my nature is all-pervasive, limitless, I can't stand feeling separate. So then, I then say, so let me now fix my sense of separation. How? By stilling my mind, like a lake. If a lake is ripply and it's reflecting the sun, can it reflect the fullness of the sun? It cannot. It's going to be very agitating when it flickers in your eyes. So now what you want to do is you want to still that mind. Because when the mind is still, what happens? It is reflecting the fullness of Aksharam Brahma on your mind. And that full reflection comes through, it manifests as joy, ananda, happiness, and it's very pleasing and very addictive. So when we say, they're addicted to drugs, they're addicted to computer games, are they really addicted to drugs and computer games, or they're addicted to ananda, which is produced as a result of those computer games stilling the mind? Many ways to still the mind, but the result is one, a stilled mind. Computer game stills the mind. Traveling stills. It's a huge thing, isn't it? Traveling stills the mind. So when the mind is still, there's no more ripples, and thus the fullness of the sun, of Aksharam Brahma, can reflect, and it is known to me as joy. It comes as joy. Now what happens soon to the lake? Pebble. We throw a pebble inside. And what's this pebble? This pebble is called your samskara. Samskara, another fancy name for a desire. So samskara is an impression which translates in the mind as a desire. So now I am in this place of wonderfulness, I am totally okay with everything is happy, but then a desire comes. I want it to be like this. I'm not happy with this. And so again, this pebble ripples the mind, and now I am searching for the next way to calm the mind. And thus it's a constant journey. That's why we've got so many new hobbies nowadays. And then you've got even more complications. See, 40 or 50 years ago, did you have parlors or these, what do you call it, saunas? Saunas, right? We didn't probably have saunas, right? We didn't have massage chairs. So now, 50 years ago, you could not think of a massage chair to still your mind. You were looking for something else. But then the society creates more, you gotta get this to still your mind. So now you look amongst this, marketplace and go, massage chair. And then that becomes the new means to still the lake. Or sometimes fashion. When we had, 60 years ago, we had what kind of fashion? Probably you know more than I do. Okay, some of you. 60 years ago. You had a fashion very different than now, right? Yeah. And so why did you wear that fashion? Why did you wear that fashion 60 years ago?
Because everybody was wearing it.
Because if I don't wear it, they're going to remind me that I'm not good enough, that I'm indeed separate and I'm not good enough. And so I had to wear that. And then today, you buy these new saris or dresses, and they say that's out of date, And then suddenly, this dress was still in my mind for 1 year because it was in style, and suddenly it's out of fashion, and now they just remind you, sorry, that can no longer still your mind. So now you have to buy a new dress and new trousers. So now you're constantly in this journey of what people are telling you, what is to be done to still that lake. Therefore, what happens to this sense of separation, ahamkara? The relationship gets further entangled with complexes, such as I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I need more, this is, out of my league. And therefore, the person then has to do what? Get rid of the entire ahamkara or reduce their complexes. Reduce their complexes. And come back to a natural, healthy, empirical I sense, which is still, I am separate, but at least you can work from that I sense. So the practical takeaway is here, working on one's mind, working on one's inner psychology is crucial. Let's not forget that. That's why Vedanta doesn't skip it. And then we ask the question, how do you distinguish, this is your chance now, how do you distinguish this ahamkara from Brahman so that I don't mix up my roles and awareness? How do you distinguish that?
The ahamkara is the seeing and Brahman is the seeing.
Okay, what exactly is seen? What is seen?
Seeing is I see, I play a role. I see, I am a separate one, now here sitting a student.
Good. So in other words, that role is being seen. Good. Okay, any other answers? Excellent. How else do you distinguish with certainty the ahamkara from awareness?
Anything you can see, it's not.
Yeah, anything that is known cannot be the knower. Okay? Right now, we all know we're like sitting here, relaxing or, learning. It's known. It cannot be the knower. The knower is always the subject, the one that you cannot turn into a known object.
Another way to say maybe anything that is something cannot be Brahman. Anything that can be defined as a name, as a function, as a form.
Okay, good. Anything that can be named, anything that can be observed, anything that can be perceived. Okay? Good. So ahamkara and Brahman. So in other words, we said that the ahamkara takes 3 major roles. What are they? Knower, doer, and well, actually experiencer, because enjoyer just means you enjoy, but more like experiencer. Experiencer, which is the bhokta. Okay, so all day long, from morning to evening, we go through these roles, fluctuating. Knower, enjoyer, sufferer, knower, doer. Doer, vacuum the house. What are you? Doer. You relax, just on the couch. You are? Enjoyer. And then pick up a book and podcast. Knower. And then again, I forgot to vacuum the bathroom or brush my teeth, right? Again, doer. So, but all throughout that, there is a self-evident, self-revealing I-amness. So now the creation comes, and the entire creation is put under the word this, which means that whatever is manifest is mithya. And it says first, what's first? Brahman, which is your I am, we just discussed. It's not actually your I am, it's the universal I am. And then we've got, we've got potential, subtle body, which consists of mind, prana, senses. And prana has three definitions: energy, intelligence that facilitates physiological functions, and glue. Yeah, glue that keeps your subtle and physical body. Subtle body, now it's waiting to take a physical body. And physical body is made of 5 elements, which are space, stands for that which accommodates, right? It accommodates a container. Then air, that which is transformation and movement. Air depends on space because it has to move from one to the other. The attribute of air is touch, because movement, right? You can only experience movement with touch. Touch is a result of movement. Next one, fire, which is illumination, energy. It lights up, physical light, and it depends on the air to burn. Next one, water, taste, attribute taste. It depends on fire too, stay what? Liquid. And finally earth, depends on the water for cohesion. Okay. What's the purpose of the 5 elements model? To show the dependency. Okay. So this means it's not this thing that is, wow, this actual 5 elements. You can also look at it like that. You can say the body is in space, there's air in your lungs and blood. The blood is, water, and bone marrow is earth. And this is, a product of your punya and papam. And the mind is also 5 elements, a product of or sculpted by punya and papam. Okay, so this is a summary of that. Now that the world is created, Brahman is called Virat, the gross macrocosmic Purusha, the gross person, the total being. Agnihi murdha chakshushi chandra suryau, dishahas shrotre vak vivrtaha cha vedaha, vayuhu pranaha hridayam vishwam asya, padbhayam prithivi hi esha, sarvabhuta anantaratma. Brahman, in association with the potential, what was the name for that? Remember the first model? Starts with H. Hiranyagarbha. Okay, he's Hiranyagarbha, which means blueprint. From this blueprint comes forms. We just did that model, forms, right? The 5 elements. Now, the total 5 elements universe in this verse is called Virat. So from Hiranyagarbha comes either 5 elements from the last verse, right? The universe. Or you could say another word is Virat. Don't get caught up with these words because Virat just means total cosmic being obtaining as all these forms. So now Brahman, in association with his knowledge and power, becomes Virat. And Virat is the one who appears as many. And this many, how do you relate to the many? This is what the verse wants to point. Like, okay, so what? Good news stuff. What do I do with this? The verse then says, okay, but then how do I relate to this Virat, to this, the one who appears as many? So now it's giving you a means of devotion. And it's got very nice imagery. It says, this Virat, if you look up into the sky, in fact, we're going to do this when you go out. You look up, what do you see? You see the sky. No. Now it says, when you look up, it is his intelligence. It reminds me of Lord's intelligence. And when I look into the moon and the sun, it is not just that, it is his eyes, reflecting his glory. And all 4 directions around me are his ears. There is nothing that he doesn't hear. No whisper goes outside his ear. He never not hears you. He hears all your thoughts. And the air that you breathe is His prana, is His breath. You're breathing the Lord's breath. And the world that we experience is His mind. He's visualizing this world. He's visualizing you and me right now discussing Him. And the earth that we walk upon are His feet. I'm walking on Lord's feet. I'm prostrating to Lord's feet. Thank you, Lord, for being a support so I can walk and I can discover your truth. Thank you for holding me. And you start to think about this imagery. What an amazing way to relate to this being. No longer do I just see, oh, sky, oh, moon and sun, too hot. I look up and I say, Lord, that's God. That's His intelligence. All four directions are His ears. His speech are the Veda is His speech. He speaks not trivia, He speaks truth. He's speaking His words through this Upanishad. Lord, here you are on the ground. I look around. Oh, in all four directions, you are listening to me. I'm breathing your breath. I'm a visualization of your mind. How can you avoid Him with this imagery? God is in your very breath. In the next verse, we're going to see simple Ishwara's engineering in action. Let's see the ingenuity of Ishwara. Verse 5, the 5 fires that sustain life. Tasmat agnihi samidhaha yasya suryaha, somat parijanyaha oshadhayaha prativyam, puman retaha sinchati yoshitayam, Bhakvihi prajaha purushat sam prasutaha. Another way to look at the design of Ishwara. What was the name for Ishwara in this Upanishad? Right at the start, we use the first word. Brahma. Okay, so it starts by saying the sun. Without the sun, there is no possibility of life. So the Lord first gives us, Brahma gives us the sun, which are His eyes. Nice. And the sun thereby provides so much life and more life. That's all He does. It just provides life. It's the ultimate giver in our solar system. It gives day and night. And as it gives day and night, it says then, from the moon comes rain clouds. So what does the moon do to the oceans? It pulls, right, ocean tides. And thus that affects indirectly the air pressure of the atmosphere and affects the clouds, right? So the clouds move, they give rain. And what happens when the clouds give rain? Then says from the clouds, which are the transmitters of that water, earth and vegetation comes. So comes from these clouds, herbs that grow, that you and I eat, that food that we ate in this lunch and in the morning. I heard it comes from the garden. And that food comes from the rain. And the rain comes from the sun and the moon. And the sun and the moon is Brahma. The rain is Brahma. The herbs are Brahma. The male eats, and the male grows, and the male produces semen. And then with that semen, with that sperm seed, he becomes a cause for new life. And thus he impregnates the female. The seed is placed in the female, which gives rise to new beings. New beings according to their karma. So verse 7, from Brahman comes dharma and know-how. Tasmat cha devaha bahudha samprasutaha sadhya manushya pashava vayamsi prana apanau vrihi yavau tapaha cha shraddha satyam brahmacharyam vidhi cha. What else comes now that the jivas are on earth walking? Also comes the devas. The devas, in other words, celestial beings. That means those beings who have more punyam. That's what a celestial, that's what a deva is. Deva equals more punyam. Because they have more punyam, they live in subtler worlds. See, if this is too much for you, because I know the Westerners often kind of have this thing about, lokas, worlds. That's fine. You can even look at it as on earth, right? Lokas are based on earth. So think of an insect. Is insect a sentient being? Let's take something maybe that's capable of some discernment. They say that the magpie bird, it's a common bird in Australia. The magpie, the dolphin, and there's one more species, are the only three ones that when they look at themselves in the mirror, they recognize, they're self-conscious of it. And how do they know? Because they get the magpie to look at itself once, and it puts a little, object on the magpie, and then it gets the magpie to see itself in the mirror again, and now the magpie is like, what's this? This wasn't here before. So the magpie, dolphin, it is one more. No, chimp. So all three are able to be self-conscious. So now suppose you are, what do you want to be? Dolphin, chimp, or magpie? So, everyone's dolphin, okay. That's because that's your like. Okay, let's go against that. Let's be a chimp. And you have a relative kind of privileges. You got bananas, right? At least you don't eat worms. You got nice family. You got trees, right? You got hiding. You got protection under the rain. You're living in a dream life. But is your life as privileged as of a human being? Definitely not. So the chimp lives in a loka assigned to its punyam. Whereas you reduce that, something like a worm. I was digging my garden the other day, and just like that I saw a little worm. And I was putting some soil in my bin, my trash bin, and along with it I just saw this little worm. I just saw it quickly and it went right inside the trash bin. So it's treated like it's absolutely nothing. That is because the worms, I'm sorry to say, it sounds already harsh, but that is how it is. I didn't intend to do that. So the worm gets sort of treated, stepped on, eaten by ants. So the worm lives in a loka, a world of its own, with its own set of privileges. It doesn't mean that it's useless. We need them, just like the bad bacteria. We even need that to strengthen our nervous system. We said already, there's nothing in the creation that is out of place. So now, if even a cell that is a bad cell, if even that has a useful function to strengthen the immune system, what if for a moment you could look at every person from now on as a cell? We've got good cells and bad cells. But if even a bad cell has good purpose, is there such thing as a truly bad person? Because even a bad person teaches you what is the right thing to do. They show me, hey, this is not the kind of person that I want to be. And I needed them to be my mirror to remind me this is not the path I want to be following. To get in touch with something inside called your inner conscience, I needed him or her to let me know. In other words, they were a mirror. They did something good for me. So is that really their papam or punyam? You see how we look at it? We say, oh, just by their existence alone, they got papam. But they helped me. So in that sense, they're also getting punyam. This reminds me of a story So there was a man who was a very dharmic person, and he did everything right. He followed the Vedas, to the letter. And so he was, just person, okay? And the neighbors liked him. And he died. And so he goes to heaven. And in heaven, he sees wonderful houses, and it's all lovely there, and everyone's having a good time. And he's like, I'm so happy to be here. Finally I've come to heaven. I deserve it. And as he's walking down the heavenly road, he sees his neighbor that was there on earth. He goes, oh, him? What's he doing here? I can't believe it. And he goes and he asks someone around and says, what is he doing in heaven? And someone says, well, you see, he was a taxi driver. And he used to drive so fast that whoever got into his taxi started to immediately pray, oh God, please help me, please help me, please help me. So he converted so many people to the Lord by his reckless driving. So is it really papam or punyam? You see how we look at it? We say it's either like this or it's like that. You can't really tell. The system is so complex that it still provides you sometimes, punyam. Just why the Pandavas ended up in hell and Kauravas in heaven. You just don't know. But the system is complex. So now the Devas, they have lots of punyam. They're in subtler worlds. What else is pervaded by Brahman? The human beings called Manushya, which means thinking being. It's an interesting name for a human being, what Sanskrit calls. You are a thinking being.
Does it come from minus?
Man manyate, to think. It doesn't say emotional being is there also, but thinking being. That is what defines a human being, a thinking being. That is the prerogative, the privilege of a human being, to be a thinker. Interesting. So even Manushya, who is a mixture of punya and papam, okay, they have a mishram, they have a mixture. As we said it already, this is why everyone experiences pain and pleasure, because you and I have mixture of both. And then we've got animals and birds. They too are manifestation of the Lord. What kind? Wild animals and domestic animals. Not just domestic, but also wild. They also come from Brahman. The life breath, the very breath that we enjoy, your very inhalation and exhalation right now that we take for granted is also there to be a reminder of the Lord's presence. Ishwara's presence is in your breath. Maybe that is something that we can adopt. Whenever we need some closeness, just remember it. Return back to the breath. Food. The very food that we eat. That's why we pray before eating. Because we acknowledge this very Brahma. Brahma is in my food. Faith, Shraddha. What is faith? It's the ability to stick around long enough until you start to get it. And discipline. Any kind of discipline, to sit down, to come back, to listen, to put trust. Even trust that has gotten you to sit down and trust the teacher, that too is because of Brahma. The very discipline that you're able to sit down, and sometimes we even take pride in, I'm a disciplined person, that too is Brahma. In other words, everything we need comes from and depends upon the Lord. Now the next verse converts ordinary seeing and hearing into an offering. Verse 8, the secret of group of 7. Sapta pranaha prabhavanti tasmat. Sapta archishaha samidhaha sapta homaha sapta ime lokaha yeshu charanti pranaha guhashayaha nihita sapta sapta. So the 7 pranas. Prana here refers to aperture. So what is an aperture? It is your physical openings. 2 nostrils, 2 ears, 2 eyes, and your tongue, your mouth. So that's 2, 4, 6, 7. Okay? So 7 openings through which the world that is now manifest of 5 elements enters the mind. Now those very 7 openings are also a creation of the Lord. So he creates these 7 openings so that the jiva can open its eyes and look around and see and appreciate. And then it says the 7 flames, the 7 beams of awareness shining through these apertures. In other words, your eyes are open, awareness is shining out through the eyes. Now you're going to say, how can awareness shine out? It's poetical language. You don't have to get logical now. It reaches out through the tongue because of 7 fuels, 7 kinds of objects: sights, sounds, tastes, sensations, smells, and thought and emotion. So that's 7 in total. 7 kind of objects which the flame is fueled by. Now you can equate this flame to one word, the subject, and the fuel to the object. In other words, there's no subject without the object. Verse continues and it says the 7 oblations, homa ha. This is the act of perception itself. So it's poetical. What it says is this awareness, it meets its objects. So think about the imagery of this. Awareness in the form of sight moves out and prostrates to awareness in form of a tree. And when it prostrates, this is the oblation imagery. It's an oblation. I prostrate to you. And when a prostration happens, what happens? Sight takes place. So it converts your ordinary seeing, ordinary hearing into an exchange between awareness prostrating to awareness. Yeah, awareness namastes to awareness. So as Sean said, he said, this game that you play, awareness says hello to Sean awareness, right? And as a result of that prostration, the 7 worlds are created. 7 worlds, lokas. Because when you open your eyes, what do you actually experience? You experience a world. Imagine your eyes are closed all your life. Would you ever experience the loka of visuals? And then imagine one day suddenly you start to see. Imagine how amazing that would be. It would be like, wow. It will be such a magical, divine, out of this world, mind-blowing event. Thus, a whole world of sight is created. Now, that perception is taking place. If only one could see with fresh eyes every moment. But it at least reminds us it brings forward something that we take for granted. How this prostration, this wonder is happening every moment. So at least we can, take that remembrance. And thus, dwelling in the cave, so these 7 flames, there's 7 beams of awareness, they reside in the cave. Cave is always equated to the buddhi. They reside in the buddhi. The buddhi is referred to as the cave. So your buddhi is like a mirror. That's where your I am is known.
Question about 7 is because 7 is a number you also see in the Bible and in other religions. Is there a reason why it is 7? What is?
Yeah, I don't know why. They could probably add 8. So it's just poetical language. It's just to make you kind of relate to your experience a little bit differently. than just seeing it as seeing. It's not just seeing, it's prostration. One is prostrating to the other. Otherwise, why 7? I don't know, but it does make sense. 2 eyes, 2 ears, 2 nostrils, and a tongue. Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Avashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.